Welcome to the Douglas County Manager's Report. Our county manager, Larry Werner, is with us. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Lloyd.
And we're going to be talking about the November 3rd meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. And at the meeting, commissioners did adopt an ordinance called the 2016 Highway Revenue Bond Ordinance, authorizing the issuance of highway revenue bonds. And can you give us more detail on exactly what the bond money is going to be used for?
Certainly. This is kind of the culmination of a discussion that's been going on probably since about December of last year on getting the gas tax passed, the 5-cent gas tax, and identifying there's 5 major roads that we need to reconstruct, and the bond money would be used for those. They're the Jacks Valley Road, the Centerville Road, Dresslerville Road, Johnson Lane, and Waterloo Lane. And there's certain sections with each one of those that have deteriorated very significantly that need to be totally rebuilt as opposed to just some kind of a surface treatment or anything else. So with the amount of gas tax monies we're getting in, these bonds would then allow us to issue contracts to get all those constructed over the next 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so you have to go through a few hoops yet with the bonds and all that, but when could you expect to get shovels out there and actually be doing some work?
Probably, I had talked to
That would be an estimate.
Our highway streets and highways folks, and I'd asked the same question, and I believe it's like late next year will probably be the earliest we could get to, if not the spring of the following year. We haven't done a lot of the design work yet. That'll have to still take place. We didn't want to get out there and spend a lot of money on design until we had a pretty good idea of that we were going to be able to have the bonds. So if not, like I say, if it's not started late next year, it'll be the spring of the following year. Okay,
and of course the nickel gas tax is what's going to pay the bond back.
Right. What we do is we actually pledge all the gas tax so that if there's any kind of a problem, like if for some reason a particular year we don't generate enough gas tax and we have enough then to back that up. Our estimate at the time when we did that was that it was going to probably cost us about $880,000 a year to pay these bonds. And it looks like if the sale goes through, which should happen tomorrow morning, we're looking at about $830,000. So we're coming in a little under budget on what we anticipated that the bond sales would cost us. So that's good news.
Okay, very good. Moving on, commissioners did adopt an ordinance for a sewer facilities and non-residential wastewater discharge ordinance. And can you tell us more about who this will affect?
This is a situation where the way that we charge for sewer within Douglas County is based on the number of what we call fixture units. It's drains, toilets, sinks, that sort of thing. And that determines the fee that you pay on a monthly basis. We have commercial buildings that occur throughout the county that periodically close down either for a remodel or they may close it on a temporary long-term basis. The sewer bill never stops as long as they're still connected to the sewer. So under this ordinance, though, we'd be able to go to a reduced fee where we only charge a portion of the fee that relates to what it costs to put the system in the ground and not for what it costs to treat the actual sewage. So it gives a little break to those commercial properties that aren't actually contributing anything to the sewer system.
Okay, very good. Also, commissioners adopted a resolution adding a monthly fixed operations rate for the commercial Douglas County sewer utility users. And what does that mean to the users?
That's a companion to the first one. The way we have to do things under the county law is that we first of all adopt an ordinance that allows us to set that method in place, and then we adopt a resolution that actually sets the rates. So the resolution will actually set the reduced rate that the facilities that are shut down and allowed to have that reduced rate under the ordinance that was passed, it sets the rate for them. And it's a varying rate depending on where they're connected and what the fixed charges were. But essentially it's about a third of the reduction, about a third of the rate reduction on a monthly basis.
Okay. Commissioners at that November 3rd meeting also introduced an ordinance amending Douglas County Code by adding language to provide for adjustments on monthly water bills due to water leaks. And who will this ordinance apply to?
This would really apply to anyone who, for some reason, hasn't noticed that they've had a major leak in their system.
Wow.
If we notice it on a billing and then notify them and they immediately get it fixed, then what we'll do is go back retroactively for a month or so and reduce the rate of what they normally would have been using based on what their previous usages were. So it doesn't penalize somebody because they've had a water leak. If it goes on for a long period of time and they don't take care of it, then we won't do the rebate back. I mean, it's to try to encourage people to really get out there and get leaks fixed so we don't waste water.
Okay, very good. And commissioners heard a presentation on regional transportation and road funding. And in that presentation, they were explaining funding, bond projects, road maintenance, and also reconstruction policies and procedures.
That was brought to the Regional Transportation Commission basically because of some of the opposition we've had over selling the highway bonds is to try to lay out the history of what monies pay for what different types of activities within the road department. There's a certain amount of gas tax that's collected by the state, and there's some property tax that goes for road maintenance, and then there's the county option gas tax that we use to fund the bonds with. And it was a presentation to kind of walk through that whole process, and then what we use to determine whether or not a road needs to be reconstructed or just do routine maintenance on it, and that sort of activity. So again, it was kind of just to lay out the whole program, kind of explain how things work. If your viewers have an opportunity to go look at the meeting and look at some of the slide presentation, it's a good opportunity to really understand how the road system is handled within Douglas County as far as maintenance and funding.
Okay, that might be a good time to let people know that they can watch any portion of the meeting they want to on the internet, because the meetings are recorded and they're there for people to access any time.
Right.
So they can go to that particular part of the meeting, and if they're interested in that, they can have a look at exactly what was said.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So
that's right out of the county website.
yes.
Okay, and it's surprising, a lot of people don't know still that that's available, that streaming of the meeting is available. So I tell as many people as I can.
It's exciting stuff too.
Yeah. Okay, commissioners approved the final transition of the community health clinic and adult daycare programs from Carson City Health and Human Services. That'll be effective on January 1st, 2017. And could you kind of give us more detail on that one?
Yes, I have to go back a little bit. 2011, 2013 legislative sessions where the state was having some economic issues. And one of the things that they had to do is start charging counties for health services. Normally it had been a state-provided function, and that changed. In looking at that, Carson City has a health division that's a pretty substantial organization, and the opportunity was made to maybe expand that out and provide those services to the surrounding counties. Douglas County took advantage of that and entered into a contract where then the health services actually being provided in Douglas County were done through Carson City, and we paid Carson City a contract. As we've gotten bigger and we've started to see our needs kind of change a little bit differently than Carson City's, we took a look at whether or not it made sense to continue the contract, or was it now time to actually begin our own health services, and the decision was made to begin on our own. The costs are comparable with what we were paying in Carson City. We're able to now start our own function, and we can focus it on some things like the adult day club. That's not an activity that was under contract with Carson City. We're able to kind of absorb that, so it became an opportunity again to kind of just provide our own services at the local level.
I see. So did the adult daycare kind of tip it?
It did. It was focused on adult daycare as opposed to more of the, I guess it was more woman-focused, female-focused, and children as a kind of a overall county health kind of program, and we want to kind of expand that to males and to seniors and that sort of thing. And it looked like to have it done through Carson, they'd have to kind of pick up that program and be able to how to administer it. And then we just felt it was a whole lot less complicated just to do it ourselves.
Okay. Well, also, commissioners approved revisions to the Douglas County pay plan and increased salaries of employees in the revised pay grades accordingly. What was this one all about?
This is interesting. The federal government has what they call the Fair Labor Standards Act, in which it defines levels that employees have to earn overtime at time and a half, or they can be exempt from those standards based on the position they hold, whether they're a manager position or professional position. Then they're exempt from overtime. And what we had classified some employees that actually were supervisors and managers as being exempt, well, the Federal Labor Standards Act raised the minimum wage that if you were going to have those as an exempt employee, you had to raise the wage. We looked at not doing that, but then that puts them all in the same bargaining unit, and at that point, you can't have members of one bargaining unit supervising another member of a bargaining unit, and it gets very complicated that way. So with the way we were actually utilizing these positions, it made sense to bring them up into the exempt standard class and to pay them accordingly.
Okay.
Complicated thing. It impacted 9 employees out of our 500 and some employees. But
Okay. But it's got to dot those I's and cross those T's.
yes, yes.
Okay. Commissioners heard a presentation at their meeting on the 3rd, and that was a presentation on the 2017 Federal Housing and Development Community Development Block Grant Program.
Right, and this is a program that it's really targeted toward doing improvements in neighborhoods of low to medium income, elderly, the kinds of areas that on their own probably needed more assistance than they could generate within the particular neighborhood. And the other thing, for the 2017 program, we want to try to align better with what the governor's office has suggested as priorities for this program, as it is a state administered program. And there was 3 major areas: economic development, trying to align the community development block program more in line with the Rural Development Authority, and then also to be able to grant larger grants and focus on larger grants to have a greater impact. So it kind of set up those parameters, and then once we got that done, then we have to then have a public hearing where applicants can submit their application for this money, meeting these criteria, and then they go through a process. So this step was really to kind of brief the board on what the criteria is, what the size of the grants can be, and then to set the hearing date for the actual hearing on the applications that come in.
Okay, very good. It is quite a lengthy process, I know. It travels through the agenda almost the entire year.
It does, yeah.
Also, Commissioners heard a presentation on the progress of the Main Street Minden program.
Right, and I think what we're starting to see is the Main Street programs of both Minden and Gardnerville are becoming very active. And what they've asked to do is be able to give a presentation to the board to kind of keep them up to speed on what's going on, and I agree with that. I think that makes sense to kind of let people know. It's a program that kind of takes a look at how do you keep active in the downtown area, how to draw people to the businesses, kind of what some of the things that they've got going on. There was kind of a litany of programs that they were looking at and things that they wanted to do. But it's just kind of keep us up to speed on what's happening there.
Sure. Well, the Carson Valley has definitely been a pioneer in this Main Street program in Nevada, so it's very interesting to watch it all develop in Gardnerville and Minden.
Right.
Commissioners approved a request from the East Fork Fire District to fill 3 open positions.
Right. 2 years ago, I think it was, there was some issues with East Fork Fire and the revenues that were coming in. And to meet their budget, they had to basically not fill some positions. And where we're at today, Chief Carlini was able to look at where his budget sits, be able to achieve some savings, and then came to the East Fork Fire Board, which the Board of County Commissioners sits at this point, and asked permission to fill those 3 firefighter paramedic positions.
Okay. And another East Fork thing the commissioners were considering, they approved a health insurance contract with Cigna Health Insurance for East Fork Fire Protection District employees.
Right, and under this one, because the East Fork Fire Protection District will be a totally separate distinct district with its own board of directors, they took a look at if they are no longer required to be part of the county's health program, is there a better health program for them? And they felt they could get a better deal with going with a health Cigna as opposed to what the county goes with. So,
right.
And we go through the same thing. We look to see whether or not the insurance we have is appropriate for the county. Are the premiums still appropriate? And we're kind of going through that same process ourselves. However, in our case, it looks like we'll stay with the same health program because we've had actually pretty good service with it.
Okay. Well, that pretty well covers the November 3rd meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Do you have a preview of any of the items coming up before the commissioners in December?
I do. We have actually one more little meeting here in November.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that too. There's not going to be a Tahoe meeting
That's correct.
in
That's
November.
correct.
But there's going to be a special meeting, which is mainly the canvas of the vote.
You're right. There's two things on it. One is the canvass of the vote, and then the other one is to actually approve the contract for the Motorola, the dispatch center.
Oh, yeah.
They did all the approvals. They got the lease purchase agreement done. And once that was completed, now what we want to do is actually sign the contract with the lease purchase company so we can get that moving. So
Okay.
we didn't sign it until such time as we knew that the lease purchase agreement itself was going to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay. And also, I thought we might get a plug in here for the upcoming stormwater advisory meetings. There's going to be 4 meetings scheduled right now, and they take off on the 14th and run into December. I wonder if you could give us a little more detail what's going to be discussed there.
Sure. We're doing 2 meetings back to back. The first one starts, as you mentioned, on the 14th. It'll start at 6:30 p.m. and it'll run to 8:30 p.m. It'll be at the community center. And the second meeting will be on the 15th, and then the third meeting will be on December 4th, and the fourth meeting on December 5th. The program, as we're trying to lay it out, is to take the first meeting and kind of get all the procedural things in place, get chairman elected, a vice chairman, and get some ground rules established, and then brief the committee on what is a stormwater utility and how does that work. Some of the areas that they're going to need to be looking at in the future to help us provide some direction on how we draft it if it goes forward. And we'll talk to them about different funding methods, about different ways to charge folks if that's the way it ends up at. And then on the meetings in December, we'll probably focus on what we call the credit manual, which is a way to reduce the fee that would be set up based on what you do with your own property, whether or not you contain floodwaters, you contain some of the sewer flow or water flows, and then also on how to deal with the general improvement districts and the towns, as well as a big element is the agricultural community and how do we deal with that. So again, the first 2 meetings are more background, kind of talk about the concepts, what is a utility, how does it work, those kinds of things, and then we'll probably really get into the meat of it in the 2 December meetings.
Okay, then once this committee does their work, then it'll all move on to the Board of Commissioners, right?
Right. What we would do is take all this information and craft it into a program description and draft ordinances, bring it before the county commissioners. Again, we're looking at the concept of a fee, and it's based on a single-family residential fee. It looks like that our estimate of being around $5 a month is still within realm. In fact, the more information we get, the more that makes sense. And then we're looking at that. If we do that, then we'd take and charge that out as an annual rate on the property tax bill. It doesn't become part of the property tax, but we can send it out as one annual fee as
Right.
opposed to having a whole bunch of monthly fees go out,
Right.
like 12.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's kind of where we're
But that
headed.
all has to be decided and worked out.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
a lot of work yet before the board.
Okay. Well, Larry, I want to thank you for all the information you shared with us here on the County Manager's Report. That's what we do. Our County Manager, Larry Werner, I'm Lloyd Higuera, and we'll see you next time on the County Manager's Report.